These are the metaphysical teachings of PL Swan.
I said in one of my introductory videos how there's sort of this kind of what we've seen before is often either religious traditions, more traditional forms of religion and spirituality. We see secular, just kind of a doubting of spirit, and then we see people who go off in their own direction, who often just feel like they should have no relational rules at all. We have these people who end up being, basically cult leaders or harming others or being a bit nuts. And I feel like there's got to be a more real and raw and authentic path to spirituality. And that would be freeing ourselves from the confines of tradition, yet doing so with some framework that absolutely holds us to conscious relationship in which we will not be harming ourselves and others. Now, I'm not talking about just, shallow little things which could be seen as harmful, hurting someone's feelings, although we don't want to. I'm not talking about things like that. I'm not talking about oversensitivity. I'm not talking about imperfection. I'm talking about the truly destructive harm that comes when we cut ourselves off from conscious relationship. In my writings, I don't use the term nonviolence. I use the term non-destruction, because turbulence and violence, if you look at the ocean, the turbulence and even violence of the crashing coast, that's part of nature. It is in our nature to have turbulence and even violent aspects, but a conscious person will never take that to the extent that it destroys another individual, another being. And I feel like in freeing ourselves with an individual spiritual journey that does not have to look like anything that has come before. It does not have to look like anything that anyone else is engaged in. Freeing ourselves in that way, we have to do so consciously within a framework of relational understandings that will ensure that we are non-destructive. When I talk about the broader metaphysics of reality, I call it the shape of the geometry of life, or the shape of life, because there's a relational shape to things. When we destroy, when we deeply harm the surrounding reality, even if we don't realize it in this lifetime, we are literally surrounding ourselves by scars and by walls. We're building walls around ourselves. And the geometry of existence is such that the only path to infinity and eternity is through relation to that which is other than ourselves. So if we are creating scars and walls around ourselves, even if we don't realize it in a particular lifetime or level of consciousness, then we are cutting ourselves off from reality. So that's part of the geometry of life. To have life, we have to be in authentic and equal relationship to that which is other than ourselves. And anyone who's truly conscious will feel this, even if they don't have an intellectual understanding of it. If they're truly conscious, they will feel it. And so my spirituality does free us to be free, to be a bit nuts, to be wild, to be unique, to be different, to express ourselves, to fulfill our feelings and our desires, but to do so within this framework of relationship. It doesn't matter if there's little bits of hurt here and there. It's not about being perfect. It's not about being, socially acceptable. But it is about being aware. It's about those qualities of soul, of humility and courage and honesty and truth and trustworthiness. It is about those things which will allow us to be free in relationship to others that is non-destructive. That does not destroy someone else's thing, their freedom, their chance to grow and to awaken and to be who they truly are. So my spirituality is indeed about a new kind of freedom, but within a conscious framework and an understanding of the relational nature of existence that will allow us to be free without being destructive. And that's the thing. Now, of course, that non-destruction is not the same as, the morality of society or religion. There are many concepts, rules and regulations, laws, even social laws, which are not necessary. Like, think about the drug laws. I don't do drugs myself, but I'm a big proponent of legalizing pretty much everything, and then having, resources and help for people who need it. But so drug laws. So I live in California, and recently in California they legalized marijuana in other states as well. And so there are these people in prison for marijuana, and now it's legal. So, like, was that moral? It was this legality. Is about legality, but not about right and wrong or morality. And we have so many things like that, and we have so many concepts of morality within traditional spirituality that is also not necessarily necessary. That's also not necessarily in alignment with real spiritual truth, with authentic life, with what really exists underneath the surface of things. And that's why I think that the concept of the geometry of life, the relational nature of existence, is so important. Excuse me. Because it gives us a framework for understanding why good things are good and so-called bad things are bad, that does not bind us to some kind of arbitrary subjective morality or ethics. It frees us to understand that there are so many things that we can do, that we can challenge about ethics and morality in society and ourselves, whilst not just going off in some crazy fucked up direction where we're hurting others. And we've seen, again, either this binding to sort of these traditions that don't all make sense, some do, some don't, or too many new spiritual teachers or gurus kind of just go off in their own direction. And I guarantee you that ego is often in the forefront, because you see, it just doesn't make sense. Truth makes sense. This is one thing I like to say over and over. Truth actually makes sense. Real truth, wow, the ocean is coming in. Real truth does make sense in a deep way when we really examine it. And so that's another part of my geometry of life vision, is that it fits together. It all fits together. Now, it won't necessarily always fit together on the surface in a shallow intellectual way at first, but it does fit together deep down. And when our ego is like, I have truth, I'm free, I can do what I want, then we just lose ourselves. And too many spiritual teachers have done this. Another thing is just knowing you have an ego. I know I have my ego, which can be an ego monster, a little monster, and I'm very aware of this, and it helps me not to, fall prey to, just succumbing and to its little bullshit. I think I said in one of my videos, maybe one of my introductions, that I like to use the term lucidity for my own awareness, my state of being awakened. I use the term lucidity because I'm not enlightened. I am like someone dreaming who realizes they're dreaming. Socrates said the way that the only way I know more than others is that I know nothing. That's sort of what it is. You realize you're dreaming. You realize that, spiritually speaking, you're in an unconscious state. That the human condition is one of unconsciousness. And this realization is what allows you to have perspective on yourself, on reality, to begin to perceive the deeper things. It would be like someone dreaming who realizes they're dreaming, and then they can begin to actually think about their waking life, the real life, the life they have when they're awake. They could actually remember because they know they're dreaming. um, knowing how unconscious I am as a human being, knowing that my ego is there, knowing that it has its own way of seeing things that tries to come up and all of this, that's what allows me to have the perspective, that allows me to offer a spiritual vision. And that's a continuing journey, to circle back to where I began. That's a continuing journey. And I'm circling back partly because it's sort of the natural flow of my talk, and also because the ocean's about to come in and just soak me and maybe knock my my iPad over. So, but yeah, to circle back, it's that is the continuing journey, to continue to awaken further, to gain greater lucidity to our true condition, and in gaining that lucidity, to just to awaken in this human experience. Not just to find that soul identity, but in finding it, to awaken in this human experience, in this human moment, to what it can really be.